Our guest today is Dr. Melvia Agbeko Odemakpore, a naturopathic doctor and founder of VIAWellnessSolutions. She's on a mission to help busy women heal their gut, harmonize their hormones, and master their energy. Beyond her practice, she also provides healthcare consulting, corporate training, public speaking, and educational consultant across Canada. Welcome back to the show called One Step. Let's talk about the journey. I'm your host, Joel Bennett. Welcome to the show, Dr. Melvia.
Thank you so much.
I have a icebreaker for you.
Okay.
To set the environment, set
Let's
the
do
mood. You can only choose from one of the three that I'm about to list. And I'm going to get you to tell me why you choose that one. So the first one is a vacation. The second one is some really good food served by your favorite restaurant, or possibly a family member that you think is a really good cook. And the third one, time to yourself so you can sleep the entire day.
And I have to choose one of those?
You only can choose one.
Okay, vacation.
Choose vacation.
Yes.
And where would you go?
Where would I go? I would go to either Tahiti or the Maldives. And why? I would go because I assume the other two will be roped in. Then I'll have food served by somebody who's cooking good things, and I'll probably have all the time because I would need it. And I'll be on vacation. So 1, 2, 3.
You know what I was thinking? Why that would not work out as you think?
Why?
Because you probably take the family.
I would.
And then they would be a little bit of a distraction. You're telling me no.
All good. Delegation. Send them off with dad.
Good answer. I was expecting the latter.
Yes.
Meaning time to yourself to sleep all day.
No, I don't need a vacation for that. I take it up front.
There you go.
You got to practice. You got to do what you're telling the people. No, it's built into my day.
Well,
for sure.
So good answer. So you catch me there because the first one captured all the
Well,
other
that's
two.
good. We're at a good start. Surprise is good.
So let's start from the beginning.
For sure.
What inspired you to become a naturopathic doctor and focus your practice on women's gut and hormone health?
It's a long story. So when I was growing up, my parents moved a lot. We were all over the place. But what my dad did was medicine. And he was a traditional medical doctor, but he studied in Germany. And he practiced and did all his schooling there. So when I was quite little, what I saw as medicine was his approach to medical care. And I remember we were in Tobago at the time. I was born in Toronto, grew up in the islands, specifically Tobago. Shout out to Trinidad and Tobago, but specifically Tobago. And what I saw was a different approach to health. So that was my version of health. So fast forward, I get to university. I'm here in the city, going to my classes. I'm in my 3rd year, and I had a guidance counselor. And I went and we were talking about my next steps, and he had seen some of my grades and knew my vision, and then said to me, there's no way that that's going to be part of your future. And I love that because it was my best teacher. Now that could have been something that turned me away, but I knew what I wanted. I always knew that I was either going to be a doctor or a teacher. And I think really and truly who I am now is the embodiment of both, because doctor as teacher. Now, when I did look at the programs, I was like, this is not medicine. This is not what I knew. And so life kind of shifted around my decision or my choice to say hell no to somebody else outside of me and my guidance saying, you're not going to. And it was exactly the fuel that I needed to be able to say, this is my choice. This is what I want. And this is what I wanted to do. So I applied to, I don't know how it came across my path, but it did. I should mention that my sister is also a naturopathic doctor. But I think she had come across it first, but it was around that same time. So we had to move again. We went to Ontario, and in that 4-year cycle, I did so much in that span of time, doing everything. And it was the easiest time I've had in any situation, any schooling. Everything else, it felt like a struggle, like a push. This felt natural. It felt normal. It felt like, oh, I feel like I'm in my element. And so I knew that going through that process, okay, I'm in my element, I'm in my spot. I just loved it. I really, really flourished in that program. I stayed and I did residencies. I did administrative, academic, and clinical work at the college for over a decade. And I always found that women's health was always very important to me. That was an influence from just what I saw around me. It's my own experience. I always love gut health because I think people often downplay what gut health can do to influence the rest of the systems of the body and health in general. And so I said, why not just marry them? Best of both worlds, do gut hormone health. And, fast forward many, many years, our family did another transition back to Edmonton here. And I decided, or at least encouraged the thought of starting my own business.
There you go.
I did not want it before. It's not something that I'd ever thought about. I was always in other clinics. And so I started, and I'm sorry, I'm going to do a pronunciation correction. It is VIA Wellness because of Melvia, but the VIA meaning part of the journey. So that was an inspired name, but it is my name. My name in and of itself is an inspired name as well, and something that had an ascribed meaning from my mom. So anyway, it's all about the journey, right? We're looking at that, and we're looking at that journey to wellness. And I don't believe in just saying, okay, let's take this natural thing for this gut or hormone symptom. Let's look at the big picture. Let's create a solution that encompasses your experience, and then it really, really underpins that experience of wellness, right? Why women's health again is that women are divine.
We're getting into
We're
that.
getting into
because I have questions.
You have so many questions.
I have questions.
And what I tended to see in all the time is you get a woman in the door, you help her husband or partner, you help her children, you help generations. And I didn't ever believe that I was just a person who helped in a very superficial way. I always felt it was going to be so much more. So I hope that answered the question.
More than I expected. I did a tiny little bit of research. Because I wanted to try to be as thorough as possible in this interview. And I told you on the phone that, this particular topic, this part of medicine is super important because I know of a few individuals who struggle with what we're about to talk about.
Right.
And I want to do my best to get the right answers for them. Right. So I saw this statistic that 1.5 to 3 times, like, women are more likely to develop IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. And globally, about 14% of women experience IBS symptoms compared to 9% of men. Why is that?
The why is always an interesting question, but here's how I would answer that is when the medical profession sees IBS, it is because they've ruled out everything else. And so IBS has this label of a diagnosis of exclusion. And therefore, it is easy to chalk it up to stress, which I believe there is a component, but they don't really know why. And so a lot of the times we would go and we would look at foods and remove them. But then what happens when it's not the food and you've removed it and it's still the same? So one of my strongest fortes and what I studied for many years before I even went into naturopathic medicine was physiology and developmental biology. I love it. I teach it. I speak it. And that is my main goal when I'm helping someone. And when we look at the physiology of it, the gut is considered that second brain. It is a nexus point, a focal point of nervous tissue and energy in the body. And so if we have our brain, you think of all the computers and they have their CPUs. Well, you got 2 of those in your body and the second one is in your gut. It connects to everything from your immune system to your hormones to your brain to everything, and it's a bi-directional conversation. So why women?
Exactly. Men, we have guts too.
Well, I would love to think that women in today's world are shouldering so much more of a stress than we've ever seen. There is I wouldn't say pressure, but there is a normalcy to be doing all the things. And with that, when women give, we give. And oftentimes it's to the giving is to everyone else except to her. So she ends up being on the back burner a lot of the times, is what I end up seeing.
Yeah.
And so the body is always going to carry a story. There are lots of beautiful books written on that, but the body always holds the story. So if the body doesn't have the resources it needs, and we are in a position where we're on the back burner and the kids come first and the partner comes first and the work, and I have to do all the things and the ABCs and the XYZs, then when do we have a time for that CPU to be powered down, rested, recharged, so that it's firing really well for the next day? And so then we take a day and then we make that into a week, and we make that into a month, and we make that into years of the same. Why would it not be that now we start to see physiological changes to our villi, the small intestine cells that absorb nutrients? Why would it not be that because we've skipped so many meals, the next time you eat, it's not prepped? And so the body now says, I'm seeing this as a stress. This is a stress response. And they've ruled out the fact that you don't have IBD, which is the inflammatory bowel disease. They've ruled out the celiac and your intolerance to gluten. They've ruled out many of the bigger pieces, the GERDs and the gastritis and the refluxes and all that kind of stuff. And then you're at this point where my body's telling a story, but what is it? I don't know. And they tell me it's IBS. So what do I do? And I think it's the story, it's the long haul of all that stuff that comes in a compounding effect to this point, that now the nervous system in the form of the gut or the projection of the gut is saying, please help me, I need more resources. And so that's where I focus in, and that's the story that I tell. And what I end up seeing in a very short period of time is people start being able to tolerate some of those foods that they thought they weren't able to. They're increasing things, but I'm not just working physically. I'm working on the story as well.
For our listeners who are tuning in, can you simplify the definition of IBS? What exactly is it?
Right. So irritable bowel syndrome. Literally, your bowels are irritated. A little bit pissed off, maybe, excuse my French, but they're irritable and they're not firing on all cylinders. So we need things to go through our mouths into this beautiful, vast, long system to pull nutrients from food. Think of a strainer. Let's do it that way. Let's think of a strainer. And a strainer is going to filter stuff and it's going to put that stuff into the blood, and the blood is going to take it to the tissues and it's going to do a thing, right? And then we get energy and we are able to do the thing. If now we start having stressors in the form of food, toxins, inflammatory responses, etc., which is all under the umbrella of IBS, what happens to that strainer, do you think?
Gets blocked up.
It gets blocked, it gets nicked, it gets torn. And where's the repair if we're not slowing down? And so we have this constant barrage, this constant injury to the gut and to the cells. And so this strainer, the integrity of the strainer is so much less. And so instead of filtering out some naughty things, those things go straight into the bloodstream. Now the body says, I don't know what this is. And so it says, what do I do with this information? It has to mount an immune response. And in mounting that immune response, you get symptoms. You get the pain. You get the bloating. You get the gas. You get the bowel movements that are either way too loose or very constipated. And then maybe the body in its wisdom tries to call in the help of the liver and the pancreas and other organs and tries to regulate things. And it will do. Your body is your MVP. It will do all it can to rectify that. But we need to step in and do some help as well, right? And so sometimes it might include, removing some of the naughty foods that have nicked up the strainer. It might include other things, but it depends on the person. But it absolutely in a word, it becomes that stressor on the gut system, that second brain. And in its bombardment of all the things, is asking for a little bit more resources, a little bit more help, because the pressures are starting to build up and it's a little bit too much.
I have more questions.
Of course.
I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Okay.
So let me stay on target, because I do believe that the questions that I have are related
For sure. I'm sure they are.
to where I'm going with this. You've positioned your work around 3 key pillars.
Yes.
Gut healing, hormone harmony, and mastering energy.
Yes.
Why are these 3 so interconnected?
Because we see them all the time. One of the most frequent concerns people will come in for is fatigue.
Yeah.
And fatigue is one of those things, like, if fatigue could be you didn't have sleep to fatigue could be you have cancer. Fatigue is very prominent. But where does that start? In my books, many people aren't eating well, so we have to start at the gut. So if we're going root cause, how about we start there? Yeah. And because hormones are so intricate, I call them gatekeepers. Yeah. And we have many. We have, the main endocrine ones, which just means the hormonal ones that have a dance and a song, and they talk to each other and they talk to the brain and they do all these things and they have downstream effects. And then you have other ones that are, very specific. So when we look at energy as the most frequent chief concern or complaint of somebody coming in, we want to know why. How can I help you through your gut? How can I help to now have the gut talk to your hormonal system to do some sort of balancing act so that you end up going out there with much more energy, much more vitality? I tell my patients, every single one of them, I say I have a secret, I have an ulterior motive is what I tell them. And it is to give them as much power back in their health and in their lives, because I'm not just playing with the absence of symptoms. I want to move you towards wellness. Yeah. And wellness includes me having some sort of conversation around education to get you understanding why your body's telling this story, getting you to the point of wellness, because what I believe is that everybody is here to do a thing. Yeah. And if you don't have energy to do that thing, you're going to feel like you're missing out and stuff. And so we get the body on board, get your MVP playing, get you supporting your MVP and realizing it's there for you, and then move through that process of health and wellness.
But how do you know the culprit most times is the gut? Like what are how do you get to that point where you can say, okay, something is going on?
Because I hear the story. Okay. I start with a story. So when I say story, share that story. I'm exceedingly curious. And what one might call a comprehensive intake, that's our first step with any person. It's not 15 minutes. Yeah. And remember how I said my dad was a medical doctor? Yeah. The only reason he served for so long, over 30 years, and why people loved him so thoroughly, they mourned that man when he passed, is because they said he was the doctor who listened. Okay. I inherited that. I see. So my curiosity is in listening to the story. And I love puzzles, Joel. In the back of my mind, it's doing a thing. It's like, how does this thing connect to this thing? Yeah. It often comes back to gut health. It might not. Yeah. Sometimes people are doing exceedingly well, but then we just meet them where they're at. Yeah. And I'm always certain in North America, we can always do better. There are so many opportunities, more than 80% of our week, for opportunities to eat things that are going to do something. And we're not saying it's just food, but it's the combination, it's the approach. And it's not a tick off the box and make sure everything is perfect. It's not that either. That's a stress, I think, as well. But how do we know it's the gut? Is because that's a primary location and opportunity for your first fuel, right? It's one of the things that we do consistently, day in, day out, is put things into that system.
I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the gut here. Let's dive into the gut a little deeper.
Let us dive.
We're hearing more about the gut-brain axis and how digestion affects everything from mood to immunity, as you've started to highlight. Yeah. Can you explain in simple terms why gut health is so foundational for women's overall health and well-being? And my listeners, even though we're making reference to women, it applies to men
all,
too.
To all. Yeah. Let's see how we would dive into that. Yeah. If you had a bucket.
Yes.
And in your bucket, you needed to put all the energy into that bucket, and you were able to put it into sub buckets for the entire day. And you said, let's call that bucket life, health, work, etc. Let's say you are the main bucket, and then you had to fill other buckets. Mm-hmm. Why we focus on gut health is, and especially when it comes to food, is without filling up that bucket first, which women are so very good at not doing.
You say it, not me.
We're so good at giving, but what about that primary bucket that has to fill all the other buckets? Yeah. And so what does that look like practically? I don't eat breakfast. Yeah. I grab something very quickly for lunch. I'm not sleeping. I'm not filling up that bucket. But then there are the kids, there's the family, there's the life, there's the work, there's all the things. So how do those buckets keep on getting filled? And so gut health as it relates to women's health is exceedingly important, because a lot of the time when I'm working with gut health, it's actually just getting a foundational nutritional pattern in place. And when we do one thing over and over again, we call that a habit. So let's get a habit of serving that primary bucket. Let's have be in the habit of putting things into that bucket so that that bucket feels good. That body feels revved up and rejuvenated, and it's really full, because the nature of that bucket is to give. And so if you're not filling that up and you're not even doing the basics, like drinking water enough to flush the system, or eating sufficient meals throughout the day. My guys have no problem with calories, by the way, and I don't love the word calories. I'm going to say it though specifically because what we ended up doing is saying, oh, I can't eat all the things because I'm going to gain weight. Well, the body is a super beautiful paradox. And it's going to say, you give me less and I'm going to think we're in starvation. I'm going to hold on. You're never going to lose that 10 pounds. I'm going to do everything I can to regulate that blood sugar, again, the gut. I'm going to do everything that I can to regulate the stress response of you just putting coffee into your system because you thought you didn't have time to sit down and have the eggs, right? So we start with the gut so that it stabilizes the foundation of what I call the wellness house. We can talk about that. But stabilizes that framework so that as any house, we build a strong foundation and then we can put a really beautiful structure on it. And then by nature of women, that bucket, that primary bucket being a giver, it can fuel the rest of things because it's taking care of self first.
I'm listening to the things you're saying, and I'm going to say, not surprisingly enough, or, these are the very same complaints that most women have.
Exactly.
It's very common.
I hear the same story all day long.
So it only makes sense. Okay. All right. What are some of the most common gut health issues you see in your practice, especially in busy women juggling careers and family?
I'm going to introduce a word. You might not hear this as a diagnosis, but I'm going to use the word dysbiosis, dysbiosis. So dys equals badly, bio, life, cis, action, process, or condition. So it is something is not quite regulated with the biome or the life, and it's usually referring to the gut. So I see that a lot, but as it relates to things like IBD, as it relates to things like IBS, as it relates to things like liver, fatty liver, as it relates to things like hopefully not cirrhosis, that's a progression. We don't want to get to cirrhosis. As it relates to things like, oh my goodness, what is up with our gallbladders? Like gallbladder disease, as it relates to gastritis, as it relates to GERD and reflux and acidity in the system. Those are the diagnoses that we see. Underlying a lot of that is some sort of dysregulation in the gut microbiome. So in a nutshell, microbiome, you think of your gut having good guys, good bugs, and naughty bugs. And then there's just an imbalance. It's like the naughty kids in school. You see one, you see them all. So they're a little bit more of the naughty bugs. And they have this conversation with your brain, that gut-brain axis, and they say, hey, can you feed me some more of this stuff because I need to be fueled? Can you give me more sugar? Can you give me more fatty fried foods? Can you give me those things? And the brain is like, okay, the hormones are changing, neurotransmitters are changing, all that is happening, but that's coming from a gut situation. And so those are some of the main ones I see. And then you have the ones that are affected by things like stress, things that are affected by things like the periods and the menses and the underlying things like PCOS, huge one in my practice. But that still goes back to an insulin resistance or insulin regulation issue, and that still goes back to the gut system, the pancreas being the specific organ there. So the connectivity is very important. But like I said, when I see these cases, to me, the label is fine. People get some comfort in knowing this is what I have. I have or experience a gluten sensitive, or I am lactose intolerant, or I have like people sometimes need a diagnosis. But you don't treat a diagnosis. You treat people. And so what is this person's story and what is their body doing with said information? And that's where we go from there.
On the topic of diagnosis, as a naturopathic doctor, under Alberta law, what can you do? Prescribe, treat? Can you make reference to getting a blood test for something, and so you can know what next step is to treat your patient? What can you do and cannot do?
My approach is always best of both worlds, and I think that's the way that needs to be. A lot of people think, oh, if I'm on the medications, would you want to take me off the medications? That's none of my business, my love. My goal is to support you, but also to fill the gaps and get the information that we need. We do that through looking at the body and the story, but we have to look at something objective. Objective either coming from the body, or objective looking at something like the blood, which is like, I break them into two categories: basic labs, and then I talk about functional labs. I do a lot of functional lab testing. Functional labs will incorporate things from blood, urine, and saliva, and it tells a different story depending on the source of the, let's put it, sample, let's put it that way. Stool analyses as well, right? So they can tell a very different story from the blood. But where do we start? We start where the person's at. Fill in the gaps. I always like to say, I want to cross my T's, dot my I's. We can totally do that in Alberta, and then make sufficient recommendations. Now, Alberta compared to Ontario, a little bit different in terms of scope, but every jurisdiction has a scope of practice, so we must follow a scope of practice. And if we've done additional things and additional licenses, so for example, I've done IV therapy in the past. That is not something that I choose to do now. I've done acupuncture and years of traditional Chinese medicine in the past. Acupuncture is not something I actively practice in Alberta. So it just depends on what I am relegated, I guess, on the jurisdiction to be able to do. But am I able to order labs? Absolutely. Am I able to read those labs? Absolutely. We spend many hours with our students in courses called in-office procedures, looking at how do we diagnostically assess things, putting that together with the story. So there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of regular looking medicine in the program, but there's a lot of our modalities that just balance things up beautifully.
Wonderful. My listeners, if so far you find value in what Dr. Melvia is giving us, hit the subscribe, hit that like button, help us to build this platform. And so this information can reach more listeners, and you are contributing to the growth of this platform. Thank you so much. For listeners who might be struggling, what are 2 to 3 practical steps they can take today to start improving their gut health?
Well, here's my disclaimer. I will never give any advice that is specific to anyone. However, it is always recommended that we can drink a little bit more water. It is always recommended that there are many options for supporting the different symptoms that we experience, the gas, the pain. There are many options. My number one step, though, if we're thinking about being both effective and safe, is speak with a naturopathic doctor. Go get your story listened to. I know my approach. I think everybody's a little bit different. And if, a naturopathic doctor does offer just an information call, start there. If you're not ready for the deep dive, start there. But we can always eat more fiber in the form of fruits and vegetables. We can always, probably most of us, decrease our sugar intake. We can regulate our alcohol intake. We can sleep more. We can do a lot of things that we are already aware of. I always like to say there's nothing really novel that I have to share with you. What I'm going to do is put it in a way and curate it in a way that makes sense for your life, so that the things that you've done and the things that I'm coming in with are going to be married in a way that your next steps are that much clearer. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Now let's get into the topic that I believe
you've been so patient.
Individuals are very curious about hormones.
Oh, we love all hormones.
Yes. Let's talk about hormones.
All right, which ones? I have a whole hierarchy we can talk about. Let's start at the bottom. We can move all the way to the top.
I do feel like sometimes that gets overlooked.
For sure.
Until it causes chaos.
Yes.
And I'm going to stick at chaos for now.
Yes.
What are some of the biggest myths about hormones that you wish more women understood?
I think what most people perceive as the hormones they should focus on are only the ones made in the ovaries. I think we think of estrogen, progesterone. I think those are the main ones we think of. But if I'm going to introduce a word, the hormone hierarchy. And if we think of that one, as it pertains to women's health, at least how I look at it, I look at 3 levels of hormones.
Yeah.
And I will always start at the bottom. So in your minds, just picture a beautiful triangle and it's got 3 levels. So we're at the bottom and we're always looking at the first layer is cortisol. We're looking at insulin and we're looking at oxytocin.
Okay.
I'm going to give the top layer, I'm leaving the middle out because that's just fancy.
Yeah.
The top layer, we look at the thyroid hormones, the estrogen, progesterone, all those ones that everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
Without the bottom layer being regulated in women, we don't help the top layer.
I see.
And so when we focus in on the top layer, it's almost like what happened to the Titanic. Fun story. Remember how that plays out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let's just focus on the top. But without understanding that hormones are dancey little creatures. They love to dance and talk and chat and influence one another without realizing that if cortisol is unregulated, cortisol being produced by the adrenals, we're not going to get very far in regulating the other top ones, the estrogen, the progesterone, the thyroid, testosterone, all of those ones. When insulin made by our pancreases that is released when glucose is high in the blood, when insulin is dysregulated, one of the main concerns, the second most frequent concern I see is weight gain.
Yeah.
If cortisol and insulin are not regulated, how are we going to lose the weight? Rather than putting a stress in the body to, deprive itself of food, to skip meals and do strange things and work out too hard, it increases those ones. So again, cortisol being the first one needs to be regulated. Insulin needs to be regulated. That's another beautiful way of saying what's up with your blood sugar.
Yeah.
The third one is oxytocin. Now, not a lot of people expect that one. That's made in your posterior pituitary. Am I right here? Let's see my fizz. 1 second. Yes, in the posterior pituitary. So that's in the brain.
Okay.
And so that one is, we reference that one as the love hormone. Where we usually see that one is if a woman gives birth, oxytocin is released. It's something that, it's usually thought of in the childbearing experience. What we know is that oxytocin is also exceedingly important in social bonding. What do women creatures love to do?
Hang out with each other.
So then this is the crux. If we're stressed out and your blood sugar is all over the place and you're isolated and you're not with your tribe.
Eat.
Right? Of course, what are we going to do? We're going to compensate. And we're going to compensate, do a lot of strange little things. You don't love that. But without those 3 ones being regulated at the base, and we have more. We have the hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Those ones I kind of throw in and do a little bit of a description on that one. But those 3 to 5 base ones, when those ones aren't regulated, everybody's focusing on the estrogen, progesterone, those kind of things. And rightly so. There are a lot of things that can go wrong when those ones are dysregulated. But I think those are some of the myths that, again, ghrelin is pulling in the gut hormones. We wouldn't expect to regulate those ones and think about adrenals and stress. We wouldn't expect to do that in the context of love hormones and bonding and social bonding and a huge, beautiful hug that increases one's oxytocin levels. So I kind of look at it very, again, globally, very holistically, and then we just kind of dial in on the woman. I have an actual process that I go through. So it's never a bombardment, but that's the way that my brain works in kind of just bringing down some of those myths and saying, I hear you, I see you, I see what you've been told, but here, let's give the big picture view and then we can dial it in for you.
I'm going to give a little bit of a trouble because what is a good show without some form of trouble?
Right? Oh, yeah, of course, of course.
Hormones,
yes.
Women's health,
yes.
Gut issues.
Yes.
When it comes to women's interest in intimacy,
yes,
are there times when it's actually a gut issue, inclusive of hormone issue too? I
wouldn't put it down to just a gut issue unless let's say there's like an honest pain situation. I find it's more like the influence of the gut on the hormones, the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone, those ones. Yeah. But I also find it is the stress hormone.
Okay.
Intimacy requires, and remember how I said my third pillar was energy. Yeah. My third functional pillar, the way that I describe it, is energy management and nervous system regulation. Okay. And so when we think of, and I'm going to make it compact if I can. We think of intimacy as the symptom. And we think it's just the absence of a libido or I just don't want to have sex. Yeah. Right? So some people just say, just go have sex. But what's the hurdle? My nervous system doesn't feel grounded and safe. My stress hormones are through the roof.
Yeah.
I've had a long day. I can't quiet down my body, my mind. It's racing. I don't know why I'm on edge. I haven't eaten. I haven't done all those kind of things. And now you expect me to be open, vulnerable, and experience all the bliss that comes from an intimate interaction? It's not as easy as I switched off the day and then I switched on the night. It's not as easy as that for a lot of women. And so what a pattern might be seen is now she starts scrolling on her phone. That's her way of trying to calm down. Maybe she needs more quiet time. Maybe she's resisting the touches. That's another story. I'm sure there's an expert in that. But I see a lot of those concerns. And when I look at it, and my approach is, okay, so what are we doing for the stress management pillar? How can we support the things that haven't filled up that primary bucket? And how can we get you balanced in your endocrine triangle, the one that I mentioned before, so that you feel that you're able to speak, ask for what you need, bring down the stress. We don't ask for we don't ask for help, but be able to combine those things so that the nervous system starts feeling, I can breathe, I can relax. Now I'm in the parasympathetic mode. Parasympathetic mode is great mode. It's the balance of the receptive energy versus the giving energy. Now she's in a different state. Her brain waves are different. She's in a different state. And so when the masculine energy oftentimes comes in, and everybody has masculine energy, even if it's the same partners in the relationship. But when that masculine giving energy comes in and says, it's time for the intimacy act thing, then she is in a position to receive not just physically, but energetically as well, because that is also part of her filling her cup, if that makes sense. It also boosts her oxytocin levels, and then we took care of the first layer.
I'm so glad I decided to ask that question.
Oh, brilliant.
So guys, you can't say I didn't put my head on the block for you, because I did.
Yep. And she needs help, and she's probably not going to ask for it. So read the room. Read the room.
Thanks for that.
Of course.
Now, I imagine many of your clients, and this is just me speculating here, are women in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Or even navigating premenopause, as I think you touched on. What are some key hormone-related challenges at this stage of life, and how do you support them?
For sure.
There are many.
I see everybody from littles to all the way up. My littlest is 2 weeks in my practice. My oldest is probably closer to 90. So I do run a family practice in 2 locations in the city, but I niche and market specifically to women so that I know that my messaging is very clear. So the key hormonal things I see would be at this stage, 35 plus, there's going to be primarily energy concerns, weight concerns. I'm seeing a lot of migraines and headaches. So as those hormones start fluctuating, insomnia.
I see.
The ladies are not sleeping.
Insomnia, I've heard
they
that
are
too.
not sleeping. And on top of that, now they have the joint pain. And so there's this strange little shift that happens, and they're thinking to themselves, but I was able to do a lot of things in my 20s. I'm not that person anymore, but they try the same old things, and those old things don't work because now as we look out the window, we see amazing fall colors. It never stays fall forever. It never stays any season. So she's in a different season. She doesn't know the playbook for this season, and so she's trying old tools. And sometimes that makes it worse, right? So those are the things that I see women being hung up on. I specifically focus in on hormonal weight. Hormonal weight oftentimes is that weight where I've tried everything else and nothing seems to be getting the job done. I used to be able to, skip a meal here or there, many meals. I was able to hit it hard at the gym. I was able to do many of these things for a short period of time, maybe a long period of time, I don't know. And they used to work. That is not what your hormones are going to tolerate at this stage. And so she will give you more headaches as those hormones fluctuate. She'll give you sleepless nights. Anybody waking up at 3:00 in the night, she will crave so many, and it's usually going to be sugars, but it's often salt, and those tell a different story. She's gonna have very specific things that she needs to beg you for the resources that she needs, I'm always referring to the body, the body as the MVP, obviously. But the symptoms often get more. So when I share that story, I say, okay, first of all, we have to remember what your body's trying to do here. You think she's at war with you? You think she's creating chaos? She's actually trying to help you. Okay, so if we look at these symptoms as a tie back to what is needed, how about we just support those things? Okay, sometimes people need a little bit more. Menopause is a tricky one, you know. I remember my mom and grandparents, like grandmom. I actually don't remember my grandparents, but anyway, when we think of our parents and grandparents, they didn't have such a fancy story to tell of menopause. So what makes it different now? I think the amount of stressors on the body in this day and age, we are exposed to a colossal amount of toxicities that are just happy to wave at you and come into your body in all different forms. And so with all this going on, the body has to do a lot more. And we aren't really supporting those things. And so what does that bucket do? It gets higher and higher and fuller. And it's not of the good stuff, it's all the stuff. And then it starts overflowing in the not good way. And so that's where the symptoms come in. I'm also seeing a lot of skin stuff.
When you say skin stuff?
Dryness of skin. Okay. Some people are getting a lot of breakouts. And one of the things that I did a lot of public talks in my early days was hair loss. Hair loss is exceedingly interesting to me because there's a pattern to it, you know. There are estrogen receptors on different parts of your scalp. There are testosterone receptors in there. So where you're losing the hair tells a story. So all of those things I see. And like I was saying, sometimes getting to that menopausal stage, there might be other options available for women as we support naturally. Everybody's so different, and that's why it's curated and bio-individual. But some women need a hormone replacement treatment. Some do and respond amazingly. Some do and don't.
Before you continue, what is hormone replacement treatment?
It is if you had a problem with your car and we realized it was the engine and it was just done. I don't know if I'm going to be giving this analogy well. I'm not a car person.
Do your best.
I will do my best. I will make somebody proud. But if we had to replace, do we replace engines?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. If we had to replace the engine because it was so spent, that would get the car moving again. Estrogen and progesterone in a woman are like her engine. If that starts depleting, on which it does, and which is the whole point of perimenopause and menopause, what happens to the car? It is the equivalent of a male losing his testosterone as he goes through his version of what we call andropause. Your sleep goes off, your mood is up the wall, energy is out the door, libido is shut, probably a lot of digestive issues. In a word, we call that stress, but where is the sneaky place it shows up in your body, right? And so that engine, those hormones are super important. And hormone replacement now says, let us take that old engine because we know it was doing its good stuff.
High mileage.
Yes, high mileage. We're in the 200s now. How do we know that? We're in the 200s. Maybe we clocked a little bit too far. Let's take some exogenous, i.e. outside of the body, i.e. made by something else, maybe synthetic, maybe from another creature. Let's take that and let's replace that in your body so that your body still remembers some sort of this thing, some sort of estrogen usually, so that your body doesn't have the effect of all of that being stripped and ripped away.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Okay, brilliant.
That was beautiful. Thank you for that. More information than I was expecting. Oh, wow.
Then you'll never forget what it's about then. Because you just think of your car.
After this show, I'm going to have a whole different outlook.
Oh, of course. That is
on our women overall. But thank you for that.
That's awesome. They're amazing. Do a lot. And
I concur.
A lot.
For someone listening who feel their hormones are off, what's one first step they could take before even booking an appointment with you?
That's a tricky question because that question sounds to me that it's an awareness step. The awareness of what is it that is actually off? Why do I suspect it to be a hormonal thing? So I wouldn't actually, a lot of people have access to everything from AI to Google to anything. There's a lot that you can do to research. Here's the trouble though, is that oftentimes when people are thinking, this is wrong with me, they go down the rabbit hole of research. Amazing for awareness, but troublesome for the distinction of where do I come into all of this. And so everybody has everything. And that's a troubling thing, because what does that cause? That causes overwhelm. What does overwhelm do? It kind of dysregulates the nervous system and causes a stress response. If I were in somebody's physical shoes, and we're in Edmonton specifically, then I would say, if you're interested in somebody, do your research, do your due diligence, see how this person can help. Go figure out if they've been talking about this thing on their socials or their public pages, do some sort of thing. Some people are just interested in naturopathic Dr. Edmonton, and then whatever Google brings them up, then they do that. Some of them go straight into booking an appointment. Some of them do a 10-minute information call, which is something that I offer. In my approach, I always want to have a conversation with a person, because I say, hey, make it be a right fit. I use those words. Let it be a right fit. I cannot work with everyone. But the people I work with, I am so much in love with what we do that it's so much better for them. They come in expecting something, they get so much more. So for me, I know I talk about niched in gut health and all that kind of stuff, women's hormones, energy, that kind of stuff. The conversations that I have and the people I meet and the value that they get out of their experience at the end, it's so much more than what they thought they were coming in for. And I love that. I love that. But if they were thinking about it, number one, do due diligence, do your research. Don't get overwhelmed. Make sure that you know when to call in a professional. I think people are experts in their bodies. With a professional, they can bring that information together in a way that puts them in the driver's seat. Then take the next step. Reach out. Don't just think about it as a someday situation. Reach out, make the appointment. I always say that to people. Actually, I had a discovery call today, right before coming in today. And I'm booking in maybe like weeks down the road. And they were like, okay, I think I'll call back. I'm like, no, this is the availability we have. Even if you need to reschedule, I would say get it in the books. Otherwise, I see you in the new year kind of thing. So sometimes we have to make a decision. So here are the 3 steps. You have that awareness. Create the alignment by understanding what it is that you want and what you want to do, and then take action from that place of alignment. So awareness, alignment, and action, that gets the ball rolling.
Thank you for that. No, because I have to get a testimonial from you. Without naming names, dates, anything personal. Okay. Can you share a scenario with a patient that you resolve a issue with for IBS or hormones?
Let me see who comes in.
What was it? What did you do? What did you recommend? And how did that all went?
Those are the details, but I'll do my best.
Okay.
Always honoring doctor-patient confidentiality. Absolutely. So I'll tell it in the form of a story. So Let me see who I'd like to pull on. Okay, so one of my favorites and more recent ones, same demographic, 35 plus, exceedingly busy. Lifing all over the place. She had done some really, really good things. And again, I focus in on hormonal weight, but I don't stay there. So I walk her through my process. We go through the entire thing. We always start with gut health, and we did tweaks, we did changes. We focused in on just her getting the right fuel for her body. I never did a weigh-in until the end. And she was down, I think she was down 8 kilograms. So multiply that by 2.2 for your pounds. I think you're closer to 16, 17 pounds. She's done that in a very short period of time. With the world full of stress on her shoulders. So what did we do? The very first thing that I walked her through, I have my blueprint. So what I walked her through was resetting the gut and her foundations. So some of our foundations are very naughty. We don't have some key things, and I can share those foundations. Most people know them, but most people don't take action on them. So we reset things like, what did her water intake look like? Specific to her body and to her weight. What did her protein intake look like? Specific to her body, to her weight currently. what kind of cravings was she having, and what did the information from those cravings tell her?
Yeah.
What was her fiber intake? That's 4. What was her fiber intake in terms of structured places throughout her day? What did that look like at each sitting or at each opportunity to eat? Because remember, she's super busy. She didn't always get to sit down. What did her stress level look like out of 10? What did her sleep look like? And this is my favorite. What did her bowel movements look like? We love to talk about poop because they tell a story. And I also kind of mapped out, what does that stool tell us? Yeah. So those are the foundational pieces most of the time. We built some pillars up. My apologies. We built some pillars up. We put in things in place for those resetting that food and then resetting the foundations. Yeah. The next step was to rebuild some key structures, some key pillars. Think of erecting a house again. Yeah. So in addition to the food, what types of food are we eating? What did that look like for her unique blood chemistry, etc.? What did her sleep look like in terms of hours, but more important in terms of quality, and how did that shift as we connected? What did her stress management techniques look like to serve things like her nervous system? And it's almost like plugging in the phone to charge. And then what did her movement look like? Not everybody likes the word exercise. So we just umbrella it and talk about movement, but what did that look like? And how could we have stretched her a little bit more, just a little bit more each time? Then I looked at something called these supporting structures, and then we did a rebalancing of those ones. Yeah. We have to increase some of the good stuff, but we also have to mitigate that and decrease some of the naughty things. And so we looked at toxicities in her life. We looked obviously at the labs and what that looked like. And then I also coached her on what her blood should be saying if she's moving in the right direction. Yeah. And then of course I supported with things like clinical nutrition. Other people would usually just call it supplementation. And those were the main frameworks. So reset, rebuild, and then rebalance. Moving her through that process. I am also a life and a health coach. I am exceedingly, if you couldn't tell, passionate about helping people. And so sometimes I'll be able to kind of go in and look at some of the nuances of the patterns and the stories that we tell that our bodies hear. And our bodies must by law carry out what it's told. What if we tell a different story? So there was a lot of coaching that was involved in there, in addition to the practical stuff, in addition to the structured pieces. Yeah. And so in an 8-session, i.e. 16-week process, she goes from, I'm not going to say her weight, but she's down 8 kilograms in that period of time. She said she had she didn't believe that she was able to do it with the amount of stress. And I met her where she was, and walked her through that. Now, why do I keep on talking about stress? Yeah. Because if you think of a house being built, the story that I really want you to focus in on is the 3 little pigs. They built 3 different houses, didn't they? Yeah. And we had a house made of bricks, a house made of sticks, and one of straw. I should flip that. Let's say straw, sticks, and bricks. Our goal, my intention is always to build a brick house. Why? Because I don't just see you at 35. I see you at 55. I see you at 65. Yeah. I want to know what your body's doing at that, and we want to set up the runway for that. Yeah. But what happened to those first 2 houses? Who came along?
Mr. Bad Wolf.
The big bad wolf. Mm-hmm. And so the big bad wolf in my analogy is stress. Yeah. But not just stress as a nebulous situation. Stress as, where does it show up in your body? Where does your body hold the story and the pattern of stress? And then we play with that for the individual. And then I looked at some naughty food-based big bads. And there's some usual things that people will pick up on food sensitivity tests. A lot of people are sensitive to those ones. But we played with that structure. And she always knew the framework. And we always knew that we were resetting, we were rebuilding, and we were rebalancing. And so through that process and having a lot of fun, and just me in my back of my mind thinking of, hey, what's her cortisol doing? What is her insulin doing? What's her oxytocin doing? How can we play with that next time? How can we increase a little bit more of that? What are the middle hormones in that hierarchy that I mentioned? What are those doing? What is the estrogen doing? And what is the progesterone doing? What is her thyroid doing? How would I know if her body is starting to relax and that nervous system is regulating? How would I know that her gut is balancing? How do I know that her detox pathways are happy? By the way, detox is not flushes and cleanses. Okay. Anytime you hear, and I want to set this right for the record, anytime you hear the word detox, think liver.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Supporting the liver. How can we play with that a little bit more? How can we go in and fine tune? Think of a mechanic going in and doing the tinkering. And that's me in my brain with people. And so in my process, that's what we were doing. And so without ever having her focus on the scale at the end, this is what we realized. That was fun.
Oh my God.
It was fun.
I'm so happy you decided to show up. Because this is information that the average person don't have.
Yeah.
Or they will probably have to pay some consultant.
Yes.
To find out or to know these things. So we do appreciate you.
My pleasure.
You also work with corporate training and consulting.
Mm-hmm.
What are you seeing in workplaces today when it comes to burnout and energy management? I think energy is the big one.
Huge one. Yeah. But energy as it relates in the workplace, performance, absenteeism, and burnout. Yeah. So when you think of those ones, and so what I end up going into institutions and doing is having a conversation or doing a workshop type of thing to bring awareness to the fact that you think, again, look at the symptom, think of that iceberg. You think the problem is absenteeism. Yeah. What's the why behind that? You think the problem is a performance issue. It's not just increasing an ROI or the bottom line stuff. It's not just that. Why are your people not performing? Yeah. In the workplace, let's say we took that same demographic of 35 plus perimenopausal woman. One of the things that I didn't mention in terms of what she's experienced, her brain is foggy. Yeah. She's experiencing all the brain fog. What happens to concentration? What happens to focus? Yeah. You couple that with the late diagnoses of ADHD in the workplace, in a perimenopausal woman, in a management and or higher role. What did you expect? Mm-hmm. It's the perfect storm. Yeah. And so she's not eating because she thinks she has to do the things. She's probably, has a drawer full of candies. You've seen them.
I know.
You've seen those chocolates and gummies and all. Yeah. That's her energy source. At the end of the day, she's thinking of, what do I make for dinner? Horrible question. Yeah. Right? That's why we build it into what the sport looks like. Remember, it's via wellness and solutions. It could be 3 words directly, defined that can stand alone, but it was very intentional, the naming of my business. Yeah. And so again, going into the corporate world, having the conversations of the relationship between your people not coming to work is a health issue. Yeah. Your people not performing is a health issue. Your people experiencing burnout, and a lot of people, it was so funny, I actually want to share this with you.
Please do.
I have obviously multiple socials, and in one of my Facebook things, I was talking about burnout, energy, the energy cycle, and I was saying something about end the energy cycle. Somebody had the beautiful time of day and all that the time on their hands to stay by my page, go under the comments and saying, you don't talk like a doctor, stay in your own lane. This is not something you should be talking about. I'm like, this is precisely what I should be talking about. Because when you think the gut is isolated from the brain, and you think the gut and the home life is isolated from their performance at work, you've just put everybody into a box. Yeah. And so in my mind, a lot of the time we look at concerns, we think of it in a very reductionist way. Yeah. Think of a waffle, lots of squares, beautifully compartmentalized. How do women work? Like a plate full of spaghetti with meatballs all over the place, and everything connects to the other thing. Yeah. So you see her not performing at work, best know she's not sleeping at night. Yeah. Best know that her brain is so foggy. She's like, what is this? Yeah. Her energy is low. Somebody's trying to pull her energy in this way. She hasn't eaten. She thinks she needs to lose the weight. Yeah. That's showing up at work. Oh, yeah. It's the same person, just in a different location. So if we can address those things at work and go in and have those conversations, it sheds a different light on the why. Same thing with absenteeism, same thing with the burnout, right? Yeah. So those are the 3 things that I kind of focus in on. And then what do we do to optimize and how can we support? And so I build opportunities and solutions around that.
A little bit more on the topic of energy.
Of course.
Because we have to get something from you specific.
Sure. You want specifics, of course.
So if you had to give our listeners 3 daily energy hacks, things they can do without overhauling their entire life, what would they be?
3 things?
Yeah, 3 things.
Sleep.
Yeah.
Everybody can sleep.
Yeah.
A lot of research journals say the average adult should be looking for 7 to 8 hours. This is what I say. I say the males,
Yeah.
minimum 7. Women, we get into 10. Let's go the 9, 10. And they're like, how do I get 9? Don't worry, we got you. But sleep.
Yeah.
If your minimum is less than the average for a male, that is not sufficient. Because when you're sleeping, your hormones regulate.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first one. Actually, going to be 3 S's. How's that?
Yeah.
So sleep is the first one.
Yeah.
Sunshine. I am literally looking at sunshine.
In this country.
Listen, Alberta has the most sunshine exposure. 300 and what is the number? 333 days? I love that number. 330 plus days in Edmonton, between Edmonton and Calgary. We have sunshine. I know it's cold, but it's often sunny when it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
Sunshine as much as possible. You can't do it here and you can't get the exposure in the fall. We know that. We can help support that because that's a vitamin D situation.
Yeah.
Most people above a certain parallel in the world have a vitamin D deficiency. Alberta is probably number 1 on that list, although we do get sunshine. Maximize it in the summer if you're able to. Supplement it if you're able to, but make sure somebody's testing and making sure that you're at the right dose.
Yeah.
And then plan a vacation, because that's how we started off this whole thing, didn't we? To the Maldives or to Tahiti.
Number
right?
one.
Number one. Number one. So sunshine is very, very important. It will not just regulate your mood.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people get seasonal affective disorder. Who feels like eating when they're sad? Quite literally, right? I'll just eat chocolates and ice cream. It's good. That is my go-to all day. And then what does ice cream do? Jack up your gut. Okay, it's like a spiral, right? But if we get that sunshine, what does it do? It helps that serotonin get a little bit of a boost. We feel good.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just any sunshine. It's that early AM sunshine. So what does it look like? Make it a walk. Go get a walk. Do a thing. Get some sunshine. At least start there.
Yeah.
It will start helping to regulate things. So that's the second S. And the third S is something exceedingly powerful and important, especially in my life, is stillness. Stillness. Which is funny because you asked me, what would I choose?
Yeah.
Stillness. What does stillness look like for you? Many of us are very religious in nature.
Yeah.
If religion is your jam, do that.
Yeah.
Go read your scriptures. Go read. I see people from every walk of life.
Yeah.
If meditation is your jam, do that. If sitting and staring at the window is your jam, do that. Do something that creates a bit of stillness. And what does stillness do? It supports that nervous system in remembering that it can switch from the sympathetic mode into the parasympathetic mode. What does that do? It regulates the most important nerve in the body, the vagus nerve. What does that do? It gives the body a reminder that it feels safe. And what happens is that when the body feels safe, then maybe somebody gets lucky at night. But anyway.
Oh my God. I was thinking it, but I'm trying
you're doing your best.
I put my head on the block once already, and so I'm trying to behave, but she's kind of picking up the connection, funny. Really. But thank you. Funny. Yeah. I wanted to hear that.
Of course.
But no, I wanted other people to hear it.
All the people to hear it. So I would say with sleep, sunshine, stillness, and if you made a fourth S, then have fun with that as well. How's that?
Does it matter what time you go to bed?
I think so, but what happens to the shift workers? So we don't get dogmatic.
Okay.
We curate.
Yeah.
We make it make sense. If you're not a shift worker, then where my mind goes is what happens when the organs that are responsible for certain actions, they have detox patterns. A lot of people don't know that. So one of the things that I look at is, if I'm going to optimize this person, what's the sweet spot for getting them, yes, in bed, yes, relaxed enough, yes, getting up on time for all the responsibilities, the work and all the regular stuff. But how am I going to kind of in the background kind of look at what the specific organs and the times that they're most active and the things that they're doing in terms of detoxing the body? When do they need the support? And so for me, it is 10. But I tell my children, I have 3 little ones, 2, 5, and 7. I'm like, after 8:30. And then I let them finish the sentence and they say, Mom is done. I'm like, very good, my angels, very good. But it could be as it needs to. Now, if a woman is trying to get that 9-10 hours, I'm averaging 9. I'm doing everything in my power to get that 9 hours. Okay, I'm honestly, that's a boundary thing. Another thing that a lot of people struggle with, especially the ladies, is what's happening with your boundaries. If we didn't keep the accountability to you just getting sleep, then it's going to feel very slippery in terms of keeping boundaries for everything else. So I just get very diligent about that. But a sweet spot would be 9 to 10. If it doesn't happen, work with the person, make it make sense.
And in other words, 11, 12 wouldn't be good.
Well, it is what it is. But I want to know not the time. I want to know what you're doing between 11 and 12. And I know somebody is scrolling. I'm not like, okay, what's your platform? And then they tell me it's TikTok. I'm like, okay, you better be wearing at least a blue light blocking glasses. Like, do something to help the experience, because I understand the why. A lot of the time they will say, it's the only time I have for myself. And what was one of my S's? It's stillness. So we don't take away the crutch. We support the structure, scaffold it, and then they no longer need the crutch.
Well said.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not just working one-on-one. You also provide healthcare consulting, corporate training, and public speaking. I'm going to ask you about my speaking when I'm finished. Why was it important to expand your work beyond the clinic?
I never ever saw myself in one-on-one for life, because that is a beautiful recipe for burnout. And I don't think I like burnout. I've done it. It's not my forte. It's not something I'm interested in. But I also believe, more than anything else, I think everybody really, really strives to create the sort of life and lifestyle that they want for themselves, doing the thing that they love. So in my mind, I'm thinking, how do I marry them all? What are my strengths? What are my fortes? And I have done a lot of outside of traditional school training on myself, because I always believe in lifelong learning. I always believe in, I'm not just here, I'm not just a naturopathic doctor. I'm not just my profession. I'm not just my title. I am here as a beautiful, sentient, conscious being who's here to experience all that life has available to me. But what would it look like given my strengths, my fortes? And so I'm always a storyteller. I guess you could tell that.
Oh, I can.
I'm always a storyteller. So if I'm doing a public talk, whether I'm doing it, I'm inviting people and I'm hosting it myself, or I'm in a workplace, or I'm in a workshop, or I'm doing something, I want to know that it is relatable, that somebody has something to act upon, but it's told in a way that is practical enough to be understood. So that's my public speaking. The healthcare and all that kind of stuff, the corporate consulting, it's just the avenue. It's the same strength, just positioned and leveraged in a different way. And with that, my idea is, when I create my definition of what success is, success has to be on my terms. Success has to incorporate all the things that create balance in my life, in my nervous system, in my family structure, in my dynamic. I think you will also appreciate the fact that I did mention my parents, who are both deceased. My partners, both parents are deceased. We are pulling non-physical energy. We have an entourage so strong, but you can imagine the pressures and the stresses that we experience with 3 little ones that is not average to the people around us. And so when I think of that, I think of how can I leverage that information, and I say, how can I show up in the best, the brightest, the most integrated part and form of who I am, and who would that serve? So that all of it is served well. I serve myself well, I serve my family well, I serve others well, and that keeps the ball rolling, so that we not just create a personal goal, we create impact, we create a generational cycle that allows that progression through time and perhaps space.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So what's one message you want workplaces, schools, or even families to take away when it comes to women's health and wellness?
Well, let us look at currently what's happening right now. Am I going to get political? That's none of my business. But why would we strike? And who is the main demographic out there saying, treat us better, give us more? It's people who are tired, who are fed up, who are not seeing the reciprocity in terms of energy, output, or money for the things that they're doing. So there's a lot of giving, there's a lot of not giving back. So if we can have conversations from that level, knowing that, okay, do these people even have benefits? Like, are people able to access certain things? Are they able to have a sort of day setup that allows them to feel nurtured as well as a giver? And that's not just as teachers, that is in all professions. Look at the predominant helping professions and tell me who's there. Right? In healthcare,
Women.
It's women. And a tired woman is not a good setup for change in the world. A tired woman is a force to reckon with, because when she's done, she's done. So my messaging would be, have something in place to remind people not just of what they're there for, the task, the job, the action, but make it holistic to their lives. And maybe that's just an ideal sort of situation that I'm envisioning, but I will always do my part for whoever crosses my path to have them think in a different way, so that they know that work is the thing that they do, purpose is the thing that they live.
It's true.
Purpose is the thing that they create.
Very true.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what's the bigger vision for VIA Wellness Solutions? Where do you see your work evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, let's put it this way. I never knew that there would be a VIA Wellness Solutions, and I pushed against it for a long time. So as I take my next steps based on interest and desire, I'm pretty sure life will give me the next step. So I try not to get too far out ahead, because then I don't live in my time zone and I create too much anxiety in my nervous system. So we'll get there when we get there.
Okay. I will keep an eye out.
Brilliant.
So before I forget, what are some of the social medias you're on that our listeners can find you?
For sure.
Potential clients too as well.
Primarily on Instagram, Facebook, so your Meta setup, not on TikTok, LinkedIn. And then my website is there, VIAWellnessSolutions.com. And I think those are the main ones.
Okay.
No podcast yet.
You mentioned Instagram, Facebook. Are you?
Yeah, Instagram.
Facebook. You're not on TikTok?
Not for the purposes of business.
Prime environment for everything.
Oh, I'm doing my research.
Yeah, but okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I don't have the statistic, but people tend to spend a lot of time.
Oh, trust me,
on
I'm seeing
TikTok
that. Yeah.
compared to Instagram and Facebook.
It's true.
I think it's almost taking number.
I play with my messaging based on the platform.
Yeah.
So last year, my primary focus was the Meta setup. So Instagram, Facebook. Coming a little bit more, I'm going to revisit my LinkedIn in a different strategy, leveraging much more of the other things that I talked about, the corporate, etc., and the public speaking. It's a different crowd, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then TikTok, then just much more of the relatable pieces and the context, the little bite-sized pieces. But my sister keeps on telling me, you need to be on TikTok.
I think so.
You need to just let me be. I'm a bee.
It's TikTok doesn't discriminate to anything or anyone or any business.
Well, let's put it this way. Message received.
Dr. Melvia, this has been a wonderful,
it's my pleasure,
practical conversation, that an educational too as well. Before we wrap up, do you have anything you want to leave with our listeners before we go?
Let's see what we have for the listeners.
Yeah.
Well, the very first thing that I hear is your body, number one, is your MVP. And your body's going to hold the story of your experiences, of your life, of those kind of things. Treat that vessel with as much care as possible. And if you're not sure, ask for help. Yeah.
My listeners, if this conversation resonates with you, if you found value, don't forget to not just subscribe, but share this content with a friend, a family member that is having these bodily issues that Dr. Melvia have touched on. Reach out to her too for consulting if you have been struggling with IBS. We appreciate you. Stay tuned for more. My name is Joel Bennett. Take care and bye.
Brilliant.